Okay, this is chapter 10, section 3, markup with spoilage. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do number 4. Okay, this was an example in your book. We're just going to do a couple examples just to give you the idea. Basically, when you own a business, you can't assume that every single product is going to be perfect. Okay, it might get damaged in shipping. It might get damaged when if you own a clothing store, when somebody tries it on, they might stain it, you know, with, I don't know, makeup or lipstick or dirty hands or whatever. Yeah. Somebody takes 2 different size shoes, okay, because their feet are different sizes, so they switch them in the box, and the person checking them out forgot to check it. I know people who've done that. Okay, that's terrible. But yeah. Okay, that's spoilage. Then you have these 2 random shoes in the same box, and that's no good. Okay? You have to account for that as a store owner. Okay? Especially if you own a very large store and it's hard to keep track of, you know, people stealing stuff. I know you guys, everybody in here knows somebody who stole something from a store. Okay? You got to keep, as a owner of a business, you got to keep that in mind. Okay? So if I have a village nursery and I purchase 105 5-gallon size juniper shrubs for $351, especially with plants, I assume maybe some of them will die or get a disease or something. Okay? If a markup of 40% on selling price is necessary and 15 of the plants are unfit for sale, what is the selling price per plant? Now, we could either change 40% on selling price to our percent markup on cost, or we could do it the way the book does it. I'm going to do it the way the book does it. That way you guys get used to it. That way when you do Math Excel, you'll look at the example and you'll remember how I did it. Okay, remember, markup plus cost equals selling price, right? So, I know my markup. I don't know my markup, excuse me. I do know my cost. What's my cost? Yeah, $351. Okay? I don't know my selling price, but do I know what my markup is? Yeah, 40% of my selling price. So 0.4x. Now I have one variable. So combine like terms. Yep. So I get 351 equals 0.6s. How do I solve for s? What do I get?
$585.
$585. So I know in order to make a 40% profit, I have to get $585 for my juniper trees. Okay? But I know that about 15 are going to die. Okay, or are going to be spoiled. Okay, so how much do I charge per tree?
585 divided by 90.
Divided by 90. Why 90? You have 105 trees.
105 subtract 15.
Yeah, subtract out those 15 trees that are going to go bad. Okay, and make the other 90 trees pay for the ones that went bad, so you don't have to take a cut to your business. Okay, so divide it by 90, and what do you get? How much am I selling it per tree? $650 or $6.50 per tree or shrub. Okay? Those 90 trees are going to pay for all the trees, even with a 40% markup, because that's how I set it up. Okay? I don't have to take a hit to my business because I already know that about 15 are going to go bad. Okay? I keep track over a year. I'm like, okay, 15 are going to go bad, give or take. Okay? That's what I'm going to take out when I set my price. Okay? What's that? Yeah. All right, let's look at another way they do it. Sometimes businesses will do a percentage. Okay, they'll say about 5% of our goods are spoiled. That would be for somebody like a huge store, like a Giant Eagle or a Walmart. You know, we'll say 5% of all of our goods are either stolen or go bad. Okay, in the deli it might be more because, you know, meat goes bad or whatever. But let's figure out how to solve it if that's the case. Please shut that door. Please. Thank you. The Bagel Boys baked 60 dozen bagels at a cost of $3.24 per dozen. If a markup of 50% on selling price is needed and 5% of the bagels will not be sold and must be donated or thrown away, what is the selling price per dozen bagels? Now, you know if you own a restaurant or you own a donut shop or you own a coffee shop, you're not going to use all the coffee that you open for the day. You're not going to use all the food that you make for the day. You might have extra. Okay, so you have to think, okay, 5% of my food is going to get thrown away. Now, first thing I need to do is figure out, okay, what is the total that I need to make in order to have a 50% markup on selling price? Well, I'm baking 60 dozen bagels at the cost of $3.24 per dozen. So what's the total amount that I'm going to make? How do I find, or total amount that's going to cost me, excuse me.
50 times $3.
Yeah, you're going to take your 60 dozen and multiply it by 3.24 per dozen. And that's going to give you the total cost of baking 60 dozen bagels.
$194.40.
$194.40. So that's my cost for baking 60 dozen bagels. Now I need to find my selling price since it's percent markup on selling price and not cost. So we do the same method we did on the problem before. So we're going to take $194.40. What is my markup? 50%, so 0.5s equals 1s. Combine my terms and divide by 0.5. So I have 194.40 equals 0.5s, divide by 0.5. And what do you get?
388.80.
388.80. So that's what I need to sell those 60 dozen bagels for in order to get a 50% markup on selling price for all 60 dozen bagels. But how many are going to go bad? 5%. So how many are going to be good?
95.
95%. I'm going to use a complement. It saves me steps. Okay? I know 5% are going to go bad, so or have to donate or whatever. They're going to be left at the end of the day. So I know I can keep 95%. So if I have 60 dozen, multiply that by 95%, and that'll tell you what you get to keep. How many dozen do I get to keep? Or am I going to sell? 57 dozen. How do I find the price per dozen?
388.80 divided by 7.
There you go. You're going to take 388.80 and divide it by that 57 dozen. And that gives you the price per dozen. What does that give you?
6.82.
$6.82 per dozen. I feel like I'm writing in like neon.
Couldn't you have just taken the price of the bagel per dozen times?
An athletic shoe manufacturer makes a walking shoe at a cost of $33.60 per pair. Based on past experience, 10% of the shoes will be defective and must be sold as irregulars for $48 per pair. If the manufacturer produces 1,000 pairs of shoes and desires a markup of 100% on cost, what is the selling price per pair? Okay? Now, you have to understand what you're reading before you can start solving it, okay? I have all these shoes. I know that 10% are going to go bad, okay? But I know that, or not bad, but 10% I have to sell at irregular cost. So basically clearance or somebody switched the sizes or whatever, okay? 10% of those are going to get sold at $48 per pair. How do I account for that? Well, first thing we need to do is we need to figure out how much money we need total. How much money do I need to get 100% markup on cost?
33.60.
How do I find out how much I need? $33.60 times 1,000 gives me how much? What does that give me?
33,600, I think.
33,600, but what does that stand for? Yeah, the cost of making 1,000 pairs of shoes. So if that's the case, what is my selling price? How do I find my selling price? Right, so I'm going to double it. It's 100%, but I'm going to show the steps because it's not always going to be 100%. You got to know how to do it. since this is my cost, I'm going to take, since it's markup on cost instead of selling price, 33,600 times 100%, and that's going to give me my markup, which is 33,600. So my markup is 33,600, but my cost is 33,600. So my total is going to be 67,200, right? So I need to sell all of those shoes for $67,200 in order to make enough for my company. But I know that 10% of those shoes are going to get sold at $48 per pair. So how do I figure that out?
100.
What? 10% of 1,000 is what? 100. Okay, so let's write that down so we don't remember. So 10% times 1,000 is 100 pairs. And what do I get for those 100 pairs of shoes? $48. So I multiply those $48 times those 100 pairs, and I'm going to get $4,800 for 100 of the shoes.
You wrote it.
Did I write it wrong?
You wrote it down. Multiplied by 100.
Yes. Thank you. So what do I do with that $4,800?
Subtract it.
Yeah, subtract it from my total that I need to get, because I'm going to get $4,800 for those shoes. So I need to subtract it out what I need to buy, or what I need to get. So I'm going to get $62,400 for the remaining. How many shoes do I have remaining? 900. So divide 62,400 by the remaining 900. So what do you get? $69.33 per pair.
Complicated.
Yeah, it's just a lot of steps, but it's not, if you understand what you're doing, it's not too bad. Questions? That's it. Those are the 3 types of problems you're going to run into. Okay? Your homework for tomorrow, it's only 10 problems. You guys can start on that today. It is right here. And get out your homework for today. It's right here on 3-6. Get out your homework for today. And in your quizzes, put them on the desk. I'm going to come around and grade those while you get your start on your homework.
18 through 38.